How's it going, everybody? It's your overweight, cruiserweight car baby. I'm positively proud to have you here today. I'm positively proud that you guys are checking us out. The Car Baby podcast is live and going on. Let me introduce my guest. It's the Dill family. We have Matt and his father here today. Not only is Matt posting a picture every day with some snake that he found, he also has some experience with the big man in the woods. So we're going to dive into that today. How you doing today, guys?
Doing good,
Doing
man.
good, and you?
Doing all right. It's always a good day when you can podcast a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So let's just dive in. What did you see?
So I've not had as much stuff happen to me as he has. So I think my stuff is going to be easier to just kind of blow through. The first time I ever had anything happen to me was me and one of my buddies. We were going hunting up on the mountain, and we were sitting in a road. And while we were sitting there, we just got this feeling that something wasn't right. We felt like we was being watched. We couldn't figure out what was causing it. And we booked it. We just said, something's not right. We need to leave.
Right.
Years after that, I was going hunting on the same road, and I took a girlfriend at the time with me. I trusted a woman with a gun behind me. And,
well, there's many mistakes.
Yeah.
And this was a long time ago, so like
This was the first one. The first time happened. I think I might have still been in high school.
high school. Okay.
Maybe just right out of high school.
So now your wife can't get mad.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That one after that, it happened about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Closer to 4 because my son had been born at that point. And I'm walking along the same road, and she's walking behind me, and I see something up on a hill, and 7.5 foot tall, on 2 legs, reddish brown hair, and it takes off running. And I noticed, the one thing that I noticed is that it didn't bob. Like when a human runs, their head will bob and stuff like that. This one, it was almost like glided. And I stopped and I said, "Do you see what I just saw?" And she said, "Is that what I think it is?" And I said, "I'm pretty sure." We kept walking, and we got down into a field where my uncle, many years before, when I was in 8th grade, had shot at some deer. And we go down into the field, and I never noticed it before, but up in the corner of the field, it was flattened out with a chimney. It used to be an old home place.
Right.
And I was like, well, I'm gonna go check that out, just see if there's, see what might be up there. As I'm walking, I noticed the ground doesn't look right. And so I kind of stop and just take a look. And I move a couple of leaves out of the way, and there's a footprint. And I put my foot up against it. And it's probably, I had the picture on my phone. Unfortunately, I've switched phones since then and never saved it.
Yeah.
I wear a size 13, and it was about probably 2 or 3 inches bigger than my foot in length, and probably about 1/2 inch to 1 inch wider than my foot. And you can see toes, you can see outline.
So it was a bare footprint.
Yeah, it was barefoot. There was toes, everything. There was no boot mark, nothing like that. That's what I've had happen to me. Now, like I said, he's the one they love.
And it just depends how much time you got.
We're the library closes at 5, man. So
we
you
might
got
get done
3
by
hours.
Just
to
get
fill
about
it
half
up.
of it. No, mine started back in about 2006, and the way it started was actually funny. Buddy of mine, his boys had played a trick on him with a trail cam. They'd brought some deer horns in and just stuck them in front of his trail cam, and then pulled them back. So he thought this was just the biggest buck in the world coming to his trail cam, and finally, when he went through his trail cam pictures, this was back when you still had to have them developed, and he seen that they'd played a joke on him.
Yeah.
And it had been a year or 2, and he said, "I need to get even with him." I said, "Well, I know what we'll do." I said, "My dad and one of his friends back in the 70s up on Standing Indian found some Bigfoot footprints up there in the snow. They was up there, and where they should have passed it that morning in the road, it went up and got around a tree and kept that tree in between it and them until they passed, and then it come back down in the road and walked by their vehicle and walked across the road and on up into the woods on the other side. And I told him, I said, I've got some old boards up there in the shop, so I'll take some boards and we'll cut us out some tracks and I'll mount them to my shoes somehow. And I said, we'll really get them. So we did, and I mean, they was going ape crazy. We got one of them things here, and we've got to get in the woods. So we got a real good joke on them. But the bad thing was, about a month after that, he said, I've got a wild hog that's coming into my yard to rooting it up. We need to kill it. And he said, we can get up in the attic of the house and up in the top bedroom and shoot it out the window. And I told him, I said, okay, that'll be fine. So we got up there. The first night we went, we was sitting there and 3 coons come out into the yard and started feeding around and that kind of stuff. Well, all of a sudden, the coons just took off back into the bushes, and something grabbed one of them. And I don't know if people listening know what it's like when a coon fights a dog or fights anything. It does from hollering and screaming, and it done that. And then all of a sudden, you just heard a big like that, and everything went quiet.
So something came out and not many things grab a raccoon.
It killed the coon, and then it starts whistling, and that's when I look at my buddy, and when it whistled, it'll just do and they do that. I don't know if it's communication, but through the years we've had them do it quite a bit, and so this thing starts whistling, and I look at my buddy. And I told him, I said, now I know the animals we have because I've lived here all my life. I've seen the black panthers, I've seen the mountain lions, I've seen the red wolves, and there ain't nothing that I know of is going to catch a coon and then start whistling. Yeah. Because, what would whistle? And so we just sat there listening, and it just continuously whistles about every 5-10 seconds. And so we decided the hog ain't going to come out. And so we turned the light on, and when we turned the light on, the whistling stops. So we leave that night and go back up there a few nights later and actually kill the hog. But then we started noticing he wanted to put some deer feeders up. So we put some deer feeders up, and we would come in, and the trees would be broke over, limbs split and bent and all of this stuff. And actually some trees, about the size of a 6x6 would just be snapped off about 8 foot high. And there hadn't been no storms or nothing like that. So we started paying attention to some of that, and I think it's more of a mental note that something just ain't right. And then we started hearing screams and yells, and one time we was up there, and we was filling up one of the feeders, and it started, and it was so loud that your whole body would vibrate. And we didn't know where it was coming from. It honestly sounded like a airplane coming across the ridge real close to the ground, just that loud. And as it tapered off, we could tell it was about 75, 80 yards behind us in a laurel thicket. And of course, we didn't have nothing but little old 22 pistols on our side for snakes and that kind of stuff. And I looked at him and I said,
shoot in the toe, maybe.
Yeah.
You might as well just shoot yourself then.
Yeah. Shoot me before it gets me.
Yeah.
There
was an older gentleman that I met, and when I was traveling through Alaska and stuff, and he was driving me in his pickup truck for the tundra, and he had a double barrel shotgun, and I was like, what's that going to do to one of these grizzly bears and stuff? And he says, well, the left barrel has buckshot and the right barrel has birdshot. And I said, oh, he goes, yeah, the birdshot to blind the bear and then the buckshot to shoot you so I can get away.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But we had those pistols, and I looked at him. I said, whatever that is, these guns ain't big enough. And it just progressed from there, and we could go in. We was checking our trail cams and that stuff every couple of weeks, and every time we'd go in, we would notice more trees tore up, stuff put across our trails, and that kind of stuff. And then we started noticing on our trail cams, you would have pictures, and then you would have blank pictures for 3 or 4 pictures, and then it'd go back taking pictures, which we couldn't, we getting rid of trail cams with that sort of thing. It ain't no good. And finally we got pictures of the side of one's leg standing so close to our trail cam that it was blocking the trail cam out. And I've got the series of pictures. There's a coon caught in a trap that is about 20-25 feet from the camera.
And this was a trap that he had made too. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was made for coyotes.
And it was made to where you're like, the only way you could open it was to actually be able to grab it and open it. Like nothing else could open it up other than that.
You would have to take I made it to where the weighted door, the only way you could get into it, you'd have to run your fingers down in between 2x4s to get it up.
Right.
And the series of pictures was the last picture of the coon in the trap is like 12:30 something in the morning, and then the very next picture was the side of one's leg. You can see the hair sticking out from the side of it, and in the same minute that one is took of its leg, it takes another picture, and the coon's gone out the trap.
So was it the same color hair as like you saw?
This was the one of his picture was at night. Okay. So it was just an infrared picture.
So it came and it got the coon.
While the one was standing in front of the camera, another one got the coon out because the trap is so far away.
Right.
That one of them, there's no way he could have done it.
So it was a team effort. It was 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. And that's what we've learned. People, if you spend a lot of time, you learn quick how smart they are. They're super intelligent. I mean, for the longest, I would say, well, them stupid things done this or them stupid thing. And it didn't take me long to realize I was the stupid one.
What a lot of people, back to the raccoon thing, a lot of people don't realize is raccoons aren't just trash pandas like the internet likes to call them.
They're fighters.
Yeah, they're the American equivalent to the Tasmanian devil and stuff.
Yeah.
Growing up on the farm that I grew up on, there was a big mean one that killed 2 like medium-sized dogs in our neighborhood. It took my dog, which was half Pyrenees and half lab, and she was a female, so she's this big bulky tank of a dog to kill it. Mm-hmm. And we had to take her to the vet afterwards because it tore her up.
Yep. Yep.
So like, it's like bears, even when they're pretty hungry, wouldn't 50-50 chance they'd go after it, only out of desperation for a raccoon. So for something just to target this kind of animal, it's not common. So,
any coon hunters know that there's cases of somebody getting a coon out of a tree, and that coon can whoop 5-6 dogs and walk off, flip a finger up and walk off. You know what I mean?
Right.
Coons are not these little cuddly animals that people think they are. They are fighters, and they fight hard.
So this is out in the Cowee area, right? Like backing up to the
Warrior.
Okay. Is that near the Appalachian Trail and stuff?
Yep. It's a Waya Bald stuff.
Bald stuff.
For anybody listening to that, for us rednecks, it's Warrior.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to give a good location so people understand that this humongous national park area and stuff. It's not the national park itself, but it's outside the national park. There's still hundreds of thousands of acres all around it and stuff, just woodland. It's like the Pacific Northwest, but here in the South, basically. It's just thicket.
And in Macon County alone, I've run into them in 5 different places. And there's no way that one group, the one group that I keep up with the most that I get, that I try to get the evidence from. They're there year round. We get evidence of them, whether it's them following us in and out of the woods or whatever. They stay in that one general area, and I've been hunt up. I actually where this group is. I actually quit hunting not because I was afraid of or anything like that, but because I wanted to leave it for them and not bother them. They will actually
Kind of respect their turf type thing.
and they will actually. We've had them. We kill a deer, gut it, whatever, and they'll actually come in and clean it up. They won't be a hair left. They won't be a leaf left with blood on it. It's just like you brought in a professional cleaning crew, and you won't find a stick out of place. You won't find a leaf out of place. And we couldn't figure out, it took us a long time to figure out what was doing it, because bears, coons, bobcats, coyotes, hogs, anything like that will make a mess. I mean, because they don't care. They're just going through it. Well, it's like they just come in and pick it up and carry it off. There's no drag marks, nothing like that to where you can follow it to where they went. So whatever it is got to be picking it up and carrying it off. And what else can pick it up and carry it off?
I noticed that when I killed a hog a few years ago. Killed it up on Warrior, and we gutted it and everything else in the middle of the road. So nothing should be able to change that much.
Like a dirt road, not
Yeah. Like
not in the middle of the highway.
Old skid
logging
road. Yeah, old logging road.
Yeah.
I ain't doing it down on 441 or nothing. But we gutted it right in the middle of the road. I came back just a few days after that. Not a single piece of intestine, nothing. It's just gone.
So are they coming to get it for food, or are they eating the
That's what I think.
intestinal part?
Yeah.
Now the echo back about kind of like territorial stuff. You said you would go in the trails, and it would be more evidence. You think they were coming and uprooting more stuff the more you came in, trying to tell you, hey, what are you doing?
The intimidation part of it lasted for probably about a year and a half. But, we didn't care. We was still going to go in.
Right.
And, back then when I went in the woods, I would carry my 300 windbait, which is more than enough to take one down.
Right.
But what I've learned since then, you mess with the one that you might see, they may let you see this one, but there are probably going to be 2 or 3 others that you don't see.
Kind of like Jurassic Park. There's one in front of you and 2 other ones.
Did you ever see the? Probably not. I'm a big classic Sci-Fi Channel original movie fan, and they had one called Abominable, and it's your classic slasher thriller. These girls are in a cabin in the woods.
I watched it.
And Bigfoot comes and terrorizes them, and they're like, "Oh, we better hide under the bed so this thing doesn't find us."
Yeah.
But at the end of it, they kill it. And the police are coming to try to find the body, and all you see in the woods is like 30 of them watching.
The wood lights up with eyes. Yeah. That's not far off.
No, it's really not. And one thing that they will do is, if one of them's in a position where it's about to be compromised or you're getting too close, something over here, one behind you or on the side of you, or whichever way it is that they need to draw your attention so the other one can move and get in another vantage spot. They will if they're wanting me to, if one's wanting to flank to my right, then they'll make noise over on the left, throw a rock through the trees or whoop or whatever they need to do to get me to look over to the left. Well, when they do, the one on the right's moving around and getting in position again. And so we've got to where that when we hear a noise over here, we look the opposite direction. And also when we go in, we a lot of times we'll have a GoPro mounted to our back so that it's videotaping behind us we're one will be going in front, but we've also got a recorder going behind us so that it catches them moving around if they need to cross the trail or whatever like that to keep up with us. And they'll, like I said before, until you keep having interactions with them, you underestimate how smart they are. But once you have done it for a while, and it'll blow your mind. I mean, it actually gets to the point of, am I actually following them, or are they following me? Because they will, if they don't want you to go into a place, you won't go. They'll do whatever they have to do to keep you out. But I think the one thing is, if you go in a non-threatening way, and you just, whether you're hunting or whatever, I've actually heard them talk. They have a language. I've heard them do that a couple of different times. And me sitting there with my gun and them 50, 75 yards from me in a laurel thicket, sitting there talking back and forth, because they know that I'd been in there so much that I wasn't bothering them. I was just in there to hunt or do whatever. And I honestly think it was like, we'll just leave him alone, because if he kills something, we get fed too. We don't have to
It's almost
effort.
Symbiotic.
Yeah, almost like a vulture mentality. Like they'll fall into herd lines and stuff.
Yeah. And I've actually got in between them doing a deer drive. And that was one of the weirdest things. The deer would run. It was during about this time of year during bow season. And the deer would run down to me and look at me, and then it would turn and run back up the hill just enough to get away from me, but then it would stop and look up the hill and blow. And for a deer to do that, there's something up there that's not wanting to have to deal with or go past.
Right.
And finally, it just stopped in between us. And I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with that crazy thing? And
because I remember asking you about this, and you said it looked panicked. Like,
oh yeah,
it was
when it come down the hill. You could tell it was getting away from something, and then it just happened to see me, because it just was breaking daylight, and I just walked up to a big old oak tree that I sat against, and it just happened to run. There ain't no way I could have got a shot at it, because it run in on me so fast. And I still had my backpack on and all of that stuff. And it seen me and took and run back. And finally, I honestly don't know where it went to. But a few hours after that, probably 2.5, 3 hours, you can hear them going up through the clear cut, and they're yelling and screaming. And it is honestly like they was cussing me out. And I'm like, well, sorry guys, I didn't know you was here.
Right.
So that's the one reason that I've quit hunting that place, is because I know that that's their main hunting spot that they depend on, and I've got plenty of them that I can go to.
Right. Well, I guess that's considerate of you to do
Well,
for
yeah,
them. You know?
I mean, and there's still other people that go in there and hunt that don't even know that they're there.
But because they're not familiar, like
they
they are with
don't
you.
know what to look for.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And that's where we do most of our researching. We've got an audio recorder that records 24 hours a day for 2 weeks, and then we have to go in and change the batteries and the SIM card out of it. We've got 6 or 7 trail cams in there. And I actually just got through putting up another audio recorder not far from there this past Tuesday. And we get a lot of wood knocks, and we haven't got the talking on there yet, but we have got wood knocks, A lot of tree breaks. You can hear them breaking the limbs and stuff in the trees. And just a couple of weeks ago, we was in there changing it out. And my buddy has a dog that goes with us. And it's off just running around. Well, we hear a coyote bark. And I told my buddy, I said, we better get her back because that's where she was headed towards where the coyote was at. And the coyote kept barking and yipping, so we called her back down and caught her, put her on the leash. Well, the coyote comes within 30 yards of us and won't leave, just yipping and barking and all of that stuff. And it was doing its best to try to get his dog to follow it. And we finally get the coyote run off and we leave. And on the audio recorder, about an hour after we left, you can hear rocks being thrown coming in at the recorder. You can hear them bouncing off the trees. And that was before acorns was falling. So we know, well, and they've got a totally different sound when they bounce off a tree than what an acorn does.
Right.
And but you could hear.
So was the coyote trying to stay close to you guys because it feared them being around, or was it spooked because they were close?
There's a thing going around that they actually use coyotes. There's been a lot of reports and from a lot of credible people that they actually use the coyotes to do their drives and stuff with. And they've actually been reports of eyewitness accounts of one coyote got too close and it spooked the deer that the other ones was going to be fooling with, and they actually killed the coyote. But the coyote was following right along with them just like a dog.
So they're kind of doing like we did, domesticating canines and stuff.
And the people think that's crazy, but there's also evidence of that being done in the jungles with the chimpanzees,
right,
doing it to the wild dogs and stuff like that. So it's sort of fitting right in. And a lot of people ask me, well, what do you think it is? I think it's just an undiscovered mountain gorilla or ape or whatever you want to call it.
That was actually going to be my question, because I interviewed a lady in Cashers. She's more into UFOs, but she'll keep track of all the Bigfoot sightings up there, you know. But she doesn't believe they're just mountain gorillas, but she believes that they're something off the wall.
Yeah.
Aliens.
Something from another dimension.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
But every continent has a monkey, a mammal like that, like a chimpanzee, gorilla,
and
that.
I've heard, and I just I just know what I know. If it ain't happened to me personally, then I don't say anything about it. But the one thing that gets me to thinking is a lot of people are talking about them being interdimensional, well, if you can go from dimension to dimension, why are you hiding in the woods?
Yeah.
Eating coons, deer guts, and living that kind of life. If I can go from dimension to dimension,
I'm gonna go somewhere I'm living like a king.
I'm gonna walk right down the middle of the street, and if anybody starts anything, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I mean that's the only thing that don't make sense to me. If you're interdimensional and you can go and move in between dimensions, why are you standing in the woods hiding all the time?
Well, see, that kind of brings up the next question. Why are they so shy? Even that rare species of zebra, it took scientists about 40 years to find, but they found it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? It almost looks like it has an anteater nose, but it's a zebra, and there's only like 500 of them left in Africa or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a rare species, but Bigfoot's more popular.
Yeah.
Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. There's more people looking for it than ever.
And I mean, this is just my thinking is, I think if they're as smart as we're giving them credit for, they see what man does. So they're like, eh.
Yeah.
But like I still think that yes, they can be shy, but I think there's times they want to be seen, like, or they're there to help. Like you remember, not a few months ago, that little boy that went missing.
That's back in the spring.
Back in the spring, that little boy that went missing for what was it?
2 or 3 days.
2 or 3 days. That little 3-year-old.
Yeah.
That little 3-year-old boy. He said that something was a bear, but he said a bear came out and helped him. Now he says a bear, but you know as well as I do, a black bear would eat that youngin.
Yeah.
Well, a black bear would smell the youngin and take off.
Either take off or hunt him.
So if he was interested.
So if he was interested. Yeah. But I think that a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call him, I think that's what it really was. And it was going to help the kid because it's like this little kid in trouble. You know, so I think that's why it came up and was like taking care of him, feeding, just keeping him warm, whatever. Because odds of a 3-year-old being able to make it in the woods for a while.
Well, exactly where they found him at too. They had already looked at area one time, and he's in the middle of a bunch of briars and all of that stuff without a scratch on him. And he said that the bear had put him there.
Yeah.
But on my thoughts of, if you go back and you study and read up all you can, all the native tribes had some form of Bigfoot in them that they had association with. I've even talked to some of the Cherokee people and they did. And my thinking is the reason that they stay away is they see, and like I said, I can't express how intelligent they are, but they see man come in. Well, white man, they would have been getting along with the Indians, didn't have no problems with them and that kind of stuff. They coexisted together. Well, white man comes in shooting everything. Everything that moved, everything they didn't understand, they're shooting and killing it. And my thinking is that they learned quick what we was doing. And if you go back and you can actually read old newspaper articles and stuff like that of the frontiersmen that killed wild men that was hairy all over and tall and
right.
Well, if they saw a group of them, and I honestly believe they live in family units. It's not just like a big troop of monkeys and that kind of stuff, but they live in family units. Well, if they see one of theirs get killed, they're going to learn to stay away from those people. And I think one reason that we're seeing and having more accounts of them now, they're not getting killed. People thinking that they're wild men and wild people, like they did when they first come to this continent, and that their numbers are rebounding because they're not getting shot. Because, as we went west, we was killing everything.
Right.
Because we was thinking that, and that's what a lot of the articles that you read is that we killed a wild man, this wild man tried to jump on us, so we killed it, and that kind of stuff. And I honestly think that it was that they learned to stay away from us, and also that their numbers got killed. Because if you take a bunch of miners back in the woods and 2 or 3 Bigfoots come in trying to run them off, and the first time they've run into them and they kill them, well, these things look too human. We better just keep it quiet. Don't say nothing.
Right.
And for all the ones that did get published, how many didn't get published and stuff like that. So that's my thinking, is that their numbers are rebounding now, and that as intelligent as they are and as time has progressed on, they've learned to stay away from any kind of human contact and that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of theories on that. There's a doctor who has a museum in Alabama. He calls himself Dr. Dino. His name's Dr. Kent Hovind, and he collects old-timey news articles. He's got one, and he testifies it's true of someone holding a pterodactyl that they shot in the Wild West times. We're talking like 1880, 1890, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But he has the Wildman newspaper articles you're talking about. But that's what's crazy. A lot of these so-called tall tales has a lot of truth to it.
There's a story I remember reading when I was a kid. It was about third or fourth grade. That was when I first learned about Bigfoot. A story of a guy who killed a Bigfoot out in the Old West, and that night his cottage got attacked. They threw boulders through the roof and killed him. But
that's part of the Expedition Bigfoot exhibit. They have
I remember that. But I actually remember reading the story about that when I was little, and that's actually what kind of starting off. It made me nervous about it if I ever ran into one. But as times went on, I think it's one of those, if you can coexist with them, they got no issue with you.
Right.
You know?
And I think that's one reason that they don't bother us is, like I said, for about the first year and a half, it was yelling and screaming and all that stuff trying to intimidate us. But when they seen that we wasn't posing no threat, we would honestly just ignore them. We was in there one time putting a tree stand together, and I don't have the best hearing in the world, but I'm down and putting a tree stand together, a ladder stand, and out from me and my buddy comes I don't know if it was a rock or a limb or what, but it comes flying through the tops of the trees to get our attention. So he goes over there and looking around and comes back. I asked him, I said, "You hear that?" And he said, "Yeah." And you could hear it on 2 feet walking. It would pace about 40 yards and then it'd turn around and come back. And I mean, we should have been able to have seen it, but they can move so stealthy that even though it was in a laurel thicket, we couldn't see it. And so I forgot what I was going with it.
I know that you said after that they threw more at you, like they kept getting closer and closer and closer.
Well, that's a different time.
Okay.
But that was.
I'm surprised they're not living with you by now as much as y'all interact.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
But stuff like that, it slowly tapered down. The yelling and screaming and all of that stuff. And we've actually had pick up and carry off a 50-pound salt block like you put out for cows. And where it was at, we had to use a 4-wheeler to get it in there. Right. So we know nobody was going to pick it up and carry it out there.
It's not something easily stolen,
No.
And we know it wasn't a bear because we had it wedged in to where that if a bear tore it, it would have to tear the sticks down around it. Well, this was just picked up, no sticks bothered, just picked up and walked off with.
Plus, most bears don't take stuff home with them, just pick it up like they're shopping and
no,
stuff.
Even our trail cams, when we've had them, bears tear trail cams clean off the trees. Mm-hmm. And I went in and got to looking for my trail cam, and it's turned face side down, laid against the tree. And the last picture it took, you can see the sky and see like what would be the midsection. You can see the hair and stuff on one. Mm. So it had to be holding that camera standing up when it took the picture of the sky. If it would have been a bear would have reached and pulled it down. And it was honestly laid face side down right against the tree to where it couldn't take no more pictures.
Almost like if somebody was to look at a paparazzi and just kind of go, nope. Like that. That's pretty much the same thing. You're just kind of going, nope.
No photos, please.
Yeah, and
Bigfoot's had enough.
That's exactly what it was like. I went in after we had so many bears getting a hold of our stuff, which was just a couple. I built a metal case for mine to go in, and screwed it to the tree with 3-inch lag bolts and 3/8 inch, 3-inch long lag bolts. So I put it all together and leave it, and I go back in a couple of weeks and change my SIM cards out and leave it there. And when I get back to the house, I noticed I set it too high. So I thought, well, I'll take my tools and my ratchet and stuff and move it down a little bit to where it's getting a better picture. Well, I get in there, and they'd had to come around behind it and reached around the tree and pushed down on it so hard, even though those light bolts was run up tight, it bent the head of them down to where when I tried to, I couldn't even get my socket on them. I had to take the thing apart to get to where I could get my socket on them. And then once I did, they wouldn't back out the tree. They run off in the tree. And the reason I know, well, people, what about a bear? Well, first of all, a bear's legs are so short it couldn't reach around the tree.
Right.
If it would have been a bear, it would have had to stood in front of it and got on top of it and pushed down, but there wasn't no pictures of anything out of the ordinary other than deer and that kind of stuff on it. So I know that they had to reach around the tree and do it.
So they're smart enough to realize, or they can smell your scent on the stuff and everything, and they realize this is his. We don't want it here, But they're so smart. They know not to get in front of the camera. Like
that's the one thing that is still killing me. I don't.
How could they understand? Oh, if I stand in front of this, it's going to have an image of me to show people. I don't like that.
And that's what I can't understand.
I know one thing we thought about is the LEDs, like the infrared to shine when
like
that's
the
happening.
Flash and stuff.
But you've even used blackout LEDs to where that shouldn't be able to be seen, and they still don't step in front of it.
And that's the one thing. I mean, I've had a lot of questions answered, but that's the one thing that still it. If I've got a pet peeve, that's it. I just can't figure out how they are so smart that they know, and I don't know if it's that they know that's something man-made. But they will stand right in front of it so close. I'll actually show you the picture after a while.
Yeah, please do.
Of how close that one's standing. But how do they know that's what it's doing?
Right.
And it just absolutely drives me crazy. And that's the one question I hope I get answered one of these days. and I've heard people talking about them being able to talk telepathically and that they can.
I've heard. I've been on that wild goose chase. They're on another level, and
that may be true, but evidently I ain't on.
You ain't on the right wavelength.
They ain't got my frequency.
We got to tune into that station, I guess. We're on broadband too. They're on broadband 1,000.
We're still on dial-up. We're still on dial-up. They done hit Wi-Fi.
Oh golly! So the main thing is the facts and the theories is that the world around us operates on a spectrum of microevolution or adaptation to survive and stuff. That's the monkeys in Africa. They are not in the Stone Age, but the ones in captivity see us use tools, so they mimic it, and they now can use tools. The moths in New York are no longer green or black; they're gray or brown, like the buildings and stuff. So maybe these have microevolved to adapt to stay out of sight and out of mind.
The stuff like that wouldn't surprise me because in this world, you adapt or you die.
Right.
And I mean, what better adaptation can something like that have with the intelligence surpassing a human's?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Another series of pictures I've got, and I can show you the whole thing. I've got a trail cam that's head high on me.
Right.
I have to reach up like this to change it, so it's over 6 feet. I've got a stick, and there's no trees around it. I'll show you all this after a while, but there's no trees around that trail cam anywhere. Well, let's see what time this picture says. at 12:10 in the morning, a stick in the middle of the night, a stick comes up in the middle of it, and you can see it moving across in front of the trail cam. And in the same minute, there's a buck deer coming off the bank, and I've never seen that buck on my trail cam again. And it was distinguishable because it was missing the eye guard on one side. So I could tell which bucks is still coming through and which ones ain't.
Right.
And I've never seen that one again. But there's a series of pictures of that stick moving in front of that camera.
So you think that was its spear or something, or weapon?
I think it was tripping the camera.
Oh.
Tripping the camera so that it knowed it had to reset because there's this 30-second delay on them. So once it takes that first burst of photos, then there's a 30-second delay before it does it again. And that's the reason I'm saying these things are super intelligent, and it's absolutely driving me crazy how they know about my trail cams. But
they've hit up the Moultrie website.
Oh gosh. They're out there doing WikiHow, how the
exactly.
Hunting cameras, trail cameras.
And but like I said, I've heard them talk on 2 different occasions. And the first time I asked my buddy, I said, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, somebody's in here," because it sounded a lot like a Native American language with gibberish put in with it.
Right.
And I told him, I said, "Well, somebody's in here. We was on his private property. I said, we'll sit here till dark. They'll have to turn a light on to leave." Well, we sat there till way past dark, and no lights ever come on. That was on a Tuesday evening. I go back on Thursday evening, same thing. Just right about dusky dark, they get to talking, and just talking like we're talking. They're not hollering, screaming. This one would say something, the other one would talk back, just carrying on a conversation. And I'm like, well, what's going on?
Does it sound like what they portray on TV and stuff? Some of those shows seem a little outlandish and stuff. They're in the woods yelling, basically. Is it like that?
Now, they do yells like I've heard them scream. I've heard them try to mimic a coyote. I've heard them do growls. I mean,
the growl was the first thing we ever heard. When I was little, he was going to take me and my sister squirrel hunting, and he said I didn't remember hearing it, but he said he stepped out of the vehicle, and he heard just this super deep like that, and before I was able to get out, he said, "Why don't we go somewhere else?" Because he didn't want to scare me and tell me that there's something out there,
right?
But he just called me and said, "I don't think we need to go here. Let's go somewhere else." And it wasn't until recently, when more of this stuff started to happen, that he finally told me that I heard something in the woods that day that didn't sound right, and it sounded deeper than any bear or anything.
And it's a different sound than a bear makes. A bear, I've run up on tons of bears hunting. I mean,
unfortunately,
to me, they're like squirrels. I don't pay them no attention. And a bear's it's going to woof at you.
Yeah.
And it's going to take off.
Yep.
But this was a guttural growl. And but I've heard them do that. I've heard, like I said, the talking. I was actually down towards Scaly Mountain one time turkey hunting. And it's just that time of morning when I can turn my flashlight off and listen for turkeys to start gobbling. And I heard one gobble, so I put my face mask on and my gloves. And while it's just, enough to where I can see, but not daylight.
Right.
And so I'm listening. I thought, well, I'll get up on this old skid road and wait for it to gobble again. I'll know where to set up to start hunting. Well, I get up and stand there, and I hear whoop, and I thought, that sounded like a whoop. And I thought, not down here. I'm used to it up there.
Yeah.
But not down here.
Well, that's when that turkey showed up too.
Yeah. So I stood there and it whooped again. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. And I thought, well, I'm going to ease out this road. And I called a little bit just to see if I could get the turkey because the turkey didn't gobble again. And I walked about 15, 20 yards, well, right straight above me. Whoop. And I walked another 15, 20 yards, and it followed me about 150 yards up the road. And I thought, well, all right, let's go back. And I come back. Every time I'd stop, it would whoop at me. And I think what it was, with me being all dark in the camouflaging, it thought I might have been one of them. And I think it was saying, like, because the tone it was in was like, come on, let's go. It's getting daylight. It's time to get out of here. And like Matthew said, that turkey never gobbled again the rest of the day. I stayed in there after 2 o'clock, and it never made another sound.
He probably ate it. He probably had his hands on it, and he was trying to tell you, "Whoop, I got it."
And with Dad being 6 foot and everything's being 7.5, 8 foot tall, it's like, youngin, get back in here.
And they're like, "I have dinner. Come here, child."
And that's the reason that I know that there's at least 4 to 5 groups just in Macon County, because I've run into them in different locations.
And we smelled them too.
Yeah, and you can smell them.
Whether they smell strong or what's
So we found out that gorillas will actually emit a scent if they're feeling threatened.
Pheromones and such.
And I was actually with him and the guy that he goes squatching with, Dwight Campbell from Dirty South Squatching, cheap plug.
There you go.
We were walking up in there and the dogs started to act weird. Like they were just watching out somewhere, and a smell came through, and it was like a musty.
It's like a dead animal smell.
Yeah, it's like musty dead animal, and it'd stay there, and then it'd stop, and then all of a sudden the dogs would start paying attention somewhere else. That smell would happen again. And if you've ever been in the woods and come across something dead, if you come across something dead, it's going to stay in that one spot. This moved, and we couldn't figure out what in the world. Well, we knew what was causing it, but anything else wouldn't. A smell like that wouldn't move, especially if something dead. It wouldn't move, but that was moving all around us.
And another reason that we think that they can do it as a defense is they like to stay upwind of you. They like keeping the high ground.
Right.
So if they smell like that all the time, then that wind, then you would smell it all the time. Well, a lot of times you won't smell it, but at certain spots, and it's usually when you're getting a little too close to where they want to keep you out of, and who knows, it may be because they've got a little one hid there. You might have walked in, we ain't on their time schedule and they ain't on theirs. They might have been out and had to set their little one down and keeping it quiet and flanking you and letting that scent out to let you know that, because it'll stop you in your tracks. It's like, what in the world? And
well, that's where the skunk inhalation comes from and stuff.
Yeah.
And apparently it's real bad in the swamps, Louisiana. But
Florida, Louisiana, places
them
like
swamps are larger than Rhode Island, just about. So
yeah.
that's a lot of real estate to travel.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about you trying to scare your friend with the Bigfoot stuff.
That's
really funny.
It was funny. I mean, we got a good life out of it.
But if he only knew what he was starting.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Once all of this other stuff started, and we're trying to tell them what's going on. Yeah, right. Okay.
You're trying to get us.
Yeah. And so it actually backfired on us.
What was that guy's name that was, you said he grew up down in Florida, he was real tough growing up. And
his name was Graham. I forget. I don't know what his last name was. But they was up there, and my friend on their property, his boy was getting married. So he brought all of his friends up from Florida, and they was having a bachelor party up there, and really just to hang out, play music around the campfire, because his boys, two of his boys had a band and that kind of stuff. And so they're all in the house. Well, Graham growed up in a real rough life, just from what he's told me. I mean, stuff that
Would kill most folk. He made it through.
I mean, I ain't gonna go into it because that's his personal life, but something I'd never want to have to go through.
Yeah.
And just real rough, real tough. Ain't afraid of nothing.
Right.
And the other guys are carrying their. They was up there shooting, and they've got their high-powered rifles and shotguns. Well, he's carrying his AK-47. You know, that
All
kind of
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
He's like, I brought my shotgun. He's like, cute.
Yeah.
and
How many rounds I got? I got about 45 more of them.
so he comes running in the house and starts cussing them out. He said, I want to know which certain word starts with the S and ends with a B, and is out there trying to scare me. He said, it ain't funny. And he said, I'm going to whoop whoever it is. And they're like, what are you talking about? He said, everybody in this living room right now. I mean, he was mad and scared all at the same time. Well, they all come in. He said, well, who's that out there? Well, what are you talking about? He said, there was somebody right outside the light. Sounded like they was taking a ball bat and hitting the side of the tree with it. And he thought they was trying to play a joke on him. Well, it was one of them doing a wood knock. And it scared him so bad. He told him, he said, when I leave here, he said, I'll never be back.
I would say it's overreacting, but if it happened to me, it'd probably be my same reaction.
Yeah, and it, well, you know, you grow up in, I ain't gonna say the city, but down there, and then you come up to these mountains and something's out there sounds like, and he honestly said the exact words, the best I remember, he said it sounds like he's taking a telephone pole and hitting the side of the tree with it. So it wasn't just a little stick.
He was full force knocks.
He said it was loud and it scared him.
Right.
And it scared them. Well, as a matter of fact, they didn't camp out nothing. They didn't hang out by the campfire nothing. They stayed, when it got dark, they stayed in the house.
Yeah.
So is that the photos right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, just some of them right here is this is the coon pictures that I was telling you about.
Right. There's the trap. I'm looking at it and I see the raccoon.
There's one coon in it and another one walking on the outside of it.
Okay.
That is at 12:37.
Yeah, I see.
The next picture was actually this one.
So I see the whatever it is. I'm assuming the Bigfoot. Yeah, that's a lot of hair. It's standing in front of the camera, and you can barely make out the trap. I can't even really see the raccoon in it, honestly, if it even still is in it.
And then here was the next picture.
And that's all at the
And
exact
that's in
time
the
hasn't
same
changed.
minute at 3:47.
Yep.
That picture, or 3:42.
So-
I'm sorry.
So one got in front of the camera and blocked it, and then you're going to have to send me that photo, the
Oh, yeah,
photos, so I can post it.
And
Yeah,
if
we
you,
can do that.
If you put them up side by side, you can tell that all this brush around it has been pushed down and rearranged. If you look,
Other way. There you go.
It then locked up on you. That's all right.
Might just have to exit out.
but you can tell.
Yeah, because you have it.
Me and that thing, let me turn it upside down. Get away from wind control.
So the,
Technical difficulties.
Now he's going to be pulling up stuff. This is my Toyota Tacoma.
so let's go through all the images I have on my device,
Yeah.
first, starting from beginning to end.
They would have to close the library.
The trail
There you
camera.
go. There you go.
Okay, so there's the before. You see the raccoon in the cage. There's well, not a cage, a trap, but it's kind of a cage. There's the brush that you use to hide the trap itself, and there's a raccoon outside of the image. I'm going to be posting this later, guys.
Okay.
and then you see the after, and it's been rearranged. The brush has been, there's been weight on it. You can see it.
And the inside, you could see where he had reached inside.
And he just
and pulled it out because all the leaves was pulled to the front of the cage.
So he grabbed it and dragged it out, and it brought all the leaves to the front.
And right here, those boards going across, the handle to lift that thing is inside of that. In between that board and another one right behind it, there's just enough room for me to get my fingers in. And we actually had weights on the door to hold the door down because we was trapping coyotes.
Right.
And
there's a deer rib laying in that, ain't it? Wasn't it a deer rib?
Yeah, we was using deer ribs for bait. And we kept coming back, and our trap was always tripped, but nothing in it. And I told him, I said, I'm going to put my trail camera up, and we'll see what's messing our trap up. Why ain't we catching it? And that was the first set of pictures we got on it.
Trail cams freak me out. I work for the town of name withheld, and I basically take care of the properties and the water towers and stuff.
Yeah.
And the town put up trail cams on the dirt roads going to the water towers. And the supervisor brought me in, and he showed me one picture, and it shows me walking down the dirt road to the water tower. And 5 minutes later, it shows a cougar, like a mountain lion,
walking
right behind me. And I was like, well, I'm not going down that road ever again.
I can carry a gun on this job.
I was like, I get a cop escort, right?
Right, here's a picture of one looking out from behind the tree.
Oh, that's the one you're talking about where it's,
You can see its shoulder and its head and coming around.
That can't be a bear.
There's no way.
There's no way. Bears aren't built like that. Bears aren't broad like a quarterback.
Bears don't have shoulders.
Yeah.
And this one here, we're guessing about 7.5 feet tall, and about 3.5 to 4 feet across the shoulders.
He's The Rock, and I'm Kevin Hart in this situation.
Yeah. He's The Rock, and I'm Kevin Hart. Pretty good sized gun.
I was about to say, yeah.
And here's one, you can see the muscle definition in its leg.
What?
Where it's round and around.
And
bears don't have that.
Yeah, bears don't have that kind of hair.
No.
That's not the right material.
No. And I've actually, at the house, in a bag that I take to the festivals and stuff like that I do, I've actually got hair from one that we had, we've got out of a pine tree where they was using the pine sap. And we think they use the pine rosin for cuts and abrasions and that kind of stuff.
Because there's actually old medicine that is pretty much just pine sap for a cut. Like
I was actually just thinking I've heard something like that before.
Yeah, it used to be Apanol. Used to be the name of it.
Not to encourage you, but even though I'm totally against the Smithsonian, they have a $12 million reward for a live Bigfoot. And that fella about in 2007, about 10, 11 years ago, he came in to the front door of the Smithsonian with a cooler, and he poured it out on the front desk.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, where's the money?
Yeah.
And he said that he had the hand of Bigfoot and stuff.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, we want it live, and this could be anything, even though he most likely, from the picture and stuff, mauled a Bigfoot with a bear trap, like one of those large ones.
You can't trust all that because you remember those guys years ago, those guys in Georgia that took a Bigfoot costume, filled it full of dead possum meat and stuff like that. And it was like, we got the body of Bigfoot.
The best one, and your story reminds me a lot of it, was a guy in Washington. He was an older gentleman. He really believed in Bigfoot, and his son-in-law thought it'd be funny to buy a Bigfoot costume and scared him. And his dad-in-law blew his brains out with a shotgun. So I don't remember how the court case ended, but I think it was accidental murder. So he didn't get any time.
That's why I do not own a Bigfoot costume, just in case.
I don't need a sign that says I'm a dummy looking for trouble.
Well, that's one thing everybody always says is, well, cost to. Well, I'd love to be the manufacturer of all these costumes that are getting sold.
Yeah, but
So, like, if
you can look in the picture, the hair is matted. The costumes you get don't come with texturized fursuits. Like,
well,
they look like Chewbacca hair.
So you
that
remember?
Doesn't look like that.
You remember the Patterson footage back in the 70s? The female Bigfoot walking
Right.
back into the wood line.
Yeah.
It's a female. It's got breasts.
Well, don't get me started on the Patterson footage because I'll pick it to shreds. But
Well, that's okay. I'll defend it.
the shred.
If you can,
It's not really the footage itself. There's some things in it. It's Patterson himself.
Patterson, yeah.
I mean, he was wanted by the law because the check that he wrote for the camera bounced and he ran out of the store. Basically stole the camera. So.
But the thing that got me on the Patterson footage is that back in the 70s, if somebody came up with that,
it was 67.
67, yeah. So in 1967, if it was a fake, somebody put the forethought into it to give it breasts. Because you can look at it as it turns, it's got breasts.
It's been scrutinized by
Disney.
All the out in Hollywood, the ones that does the special effects and all that stuff, and they said that there was no way that it was anything like that because the technology back then wasn't around to even create anything close to that.
Right.
And the walking when it walks, if you notice it when its leg comes up, ours stops about here, but it brings it up to a 90 degree. And when we walk, and the reason that is when they walk, one foot is straight in front of the other. If you see tracks that are one over here and it's barefooted, it's human. These will always walk one foot directly in front of the other.
Why is that?
That's
is
just
the hip alignment?
That's their genetics. It's if you notice on that film, she's wide, and that's just the way. That's the way that they can't even get a professional athlete to walk in that same manner. The posture and all of that stuff all at the same time because their weight displacement is different in ours. Theirs is in the center of their foot, where ours is back on the heel. Well, theirs is in the center. And so that means their whole proportion is different than ours. When they walk, their hips actually come around more like this instead of like ours is straight ahead.
Right. So they walk in a round pattern, almost like forgive my judo talk, but a round crescent walk. Because in judo, when you walk in defense, you spring it around like this.
Right.
Because you don't ever want to be off-centered or off-balance. I don't know. I did it for you guys, but no one else can see it. But it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah. But it was a beautiful example for anybody listening.
Yes.
And but that's the difference. Their hips are made to come out and in, to where that's one thing, which I've seen it a lot in the woods. You can get behind I'll show you some prints that we've got to take pictures of because it's in the mud so much you couldn't cast them. But I've seen it a lot where there's one right behind the other. That way we know that what we're following. Ours are going to be out to the side. Humans are going to be side by side. This is the only animal that I've ever.
A zombie's going to be dragging.
That I know of that is 1 foot straight in front of the other. And you can watch them even on if you find some that are true tracks and trails in the snow, you'll notice that they're one right straight in front of the other. But this,
the proportions on them are so totally different anyway. Just head to toe. They don't have they don't have a neck, and that's why I think that one when I saw it run, its head didn't bob. It's because it didn't have. Because if you look at them, if you look at any videos or anything of them, Remember Bill Goldberg?
Yes.
The big traps going up. It's kind of the same thing. Just goes shoulder to neck. Yeah, just shoulder to neck, and their arms are longer than normal human. Like if you look at the like if a gorilla stands up, his arms go down to about his knees. When we stand up, they come about to our hips. Most of these that you see, the videos and everything else, their arms are going down to right about their knees. What, 30% longer or something?
There's a guy, and I don't know if we knew this or not, but there's a guy on YouTube.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, his name is Thinker Thunker.
Check him out.
Yeah, he does a real.
We'll plug everybody we can.
There you go.
He does a real good job of debunking videos or talking about why they're real, and he has spent his life in cinematography doing that kind of breaking videos down. I reckon that's the name of the word that you call that stuff. But anyway, he can go in and show you videos, and he can bring the ratios up and prove to you why a video is real or ain't real because of the alignment of the eyes and the ears, and also of the length of the arms. The arms of it falls within ours is like 20% I think to our legs, and shorter than our legs or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
And theirs are like 30% longer than their legs. Their arms are actually longer than what their legs are. And but he can get into can go into all that detail.
There was a documentary. It was probably on Expedition America channel because they like the Jab Discovery Channel, with realistic documentaries and stuff. Yeah. They don't run anything on mermaids or megalodons or anything like that. But it was a Bigfoot special, and they brought in people like that who, look at videos and they test it, and they showed them videos like, oh, we can prove this and prove that. But then they showed footage of a guy in a gorilla suit, and none of them could, discern that it was a guy. And they're like, yep, that's a gorilla. They walk just like that. Or, yeah, this footage is 100% accurate. And then at the end, the guy takes the mask off and it's got a gorilla suit.
Yeah.
Like, aha.
That's the one thing about him that I like. There's one video out there where this guy saw one and he takes off running after it. Well, he runs right up on it and shines it in the face, and it's white. And you can see, and everybody says, oh, it's somebody in the mask. But he breaks down in that video why the way that the eyes move, the eyebrows move, the nose moves, and mouth moves, and all this stuff. Where he had been working in the film industry and stuff, he said, I know for a fact that they'd have to have all of these because it turns around and takes off running. And he said you would have to have all of these cords and ropes and cables and all that stuff to get a mask to do what that one done when it just turned around and took off.
Right.
And so that's a good, if you want to learn more about them, I would highly recommend checking out some of his videos. And we've got pictures of, we was talking earlier about how well they can hide the one face picture that we've got. It's layered in behind 2 or 3 layers. There's a green leaf across its forehead, and it actually tries to break its nose up with a stick that's here, but you can see the side of its nostril out the other side of it.
So you have a face pic?
Yeah.
Whoa.
This is one of them that followed him in while they were checking recorders.
This is big. I've never seen a Facebook before. It's always the out of focus.
And it's actually a good picture.
We may have cracked the case here, boys.
Right here is one with a circle around it.
Whoa.
You can see the bridge of the nose on each side of that.
Yeah. So it's trying to camouflage itself.
And it's layered in.
Okay, so that's the nostrils.
Yeah, that's the
that bridge of a nose. Yeah, that can't be.
You can see the eye here, and the top of its head. coming all the way up to this one.
That looks like a gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I've not been able to get to do it yet, but somebody told me that there's actually one right there. You can see an eye here and an eye there, and that brown would be the leather part of its face. And whether that one is or not, I ain't
That one,
there.
yeah, that
sure,
one's a little
but-
less skeptical with that one.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
That one stands out.
Wait, how about what's that right there?
It could be its hand.
That's kind of what it looks like. It looks like it's holding itself up because it kind of grows down into that. Like it has its arm up and it's holding on to something.
Yeah.
And
Googly woo.
this one was within about 20, 25 yards of us.
Yeah.
And we were standing there talking. Me and my buddy Dwight Campbell was standing there talking how we could smell it. And then the stink stopped. And when we first come around the corner, we smelled it. And I told him, I said, something's dead. And I said, it's big. It ain't a little squirrel or possum or coon. Something big is dead. And then it stopped. And I looked at him, I said, something ain't right. For that smell to be that stout, it should be constant because the wind's coming down the hill to us. So it was coming from above us, so it shouldn't stop. So we were standing there talking, and I just seen something just sort of flutter move in the clear cut it was in. And I told him, I said, something just moved up there. And we stood there talking a few minutes, and then I seen it move again. And I said, it may be nothing, but something's definitely moving up in the clear cut. So luckily he had his camera that's facing forward. He just zoomed it in and panned it. And we didn't even know it until he got home that night and checked it and found the face on it. And
it's almost as bad as those ghost pictures where they take it at night and then later they see the figure hiding behind it and stuff.
The white figure, shadow figure, something like that behind. Yeah,
that's heavy.
This one, it would follow us in about every 50 to 70 yards. It would do the smell. In between, it wouldn't do it, but every time we stopped to talk, we'd smell it. And nothing in between. I mean, it stayed above us the whole time because you could hear it. Just real quiet, just slipping along. And then it followed us all the way out to where our trail cams and our audio recorder is. And then it circled around us and then followed us all the way back within about 50 yards of the truck.
That's crazy.
You got the picture on there of where it broke the limb with that laurel limb?
Wide oak.
The laurel limb.
The laurel limb, yeah.
So he used to have this. Right now there's somebody using
No,
it.
I've got it back.
Oh, did you get it back?
I got it back.
Okay. Well, doggone, we could have brought that.
That's one of the...
So the picture, I'll post it later if you want to send it to me.
Yeah.
That's a healthy tree because it's still white on the inside, and it's a fresh snap. That's no cuts, nothing.
But not even the
been
snap.
twisted.
It's twisted.
It's twisted. Oh
If
my
you
God.
look right here, you can see where this come out from over in here. It just, what it done, it just walked up to it and took it like that and wrung it open.
Oh my God.
And there's no, and we took it to somebody, and somebody said, "Well, that's a bear." There's no tooth marks, no claw marks, no nothing.
Bears don't have thumbs.
Yeah, exactly,
so-
exactly. A bear ain't gonna twist nothing.
No. And this one actually came, I've got another picture of
There you
a laurel tree that they broke off that was about that big around, and they snapped it off that high off the ground. And that takes some strength.
Yeah, that takes a lot of
And
muscle.
what I'd done is they was always cluttering up, and they still do, our trails that we use going into our trail cams, and actually this was going into where our deer hunted at. And I cleaned the one up, take my little folding saw and some snips and clean it up and get it out of the way. Well, I come back about probably 2 weeks later, and this one is 40 yards further, keeping me out of there. 40 yards.
So they came back and put it back as a warning and stuff. Oh man.
This one was broke across, and Matthew can tell you, I tried to put my shoulder in under it and move it, and I couldn't budge it.
Yeah.
And I'm like I say, I'm a pretty good sized youngin.
Yeah, you got a lunchbox for hands, so I wouldn't mess with you.
I took a saw and cut it right here and up here and took that part out and still have it.
And I don't know a man in the world that can take a green tree.
Yeah,
and
a living tree, hardwood,
especially a
laurel, and twist it into splinter. But it's into splinter.
Something that's big around, almost big around as a softball.
Yeah.
Not quite as big as a softball, but it's bigger than a baseball.
Right.
And right here is a white oak limb that they carried in. And you can see my buddy right there.
Oh, good Lord. I didn't.
Yeah.
That's not a limb. That's a whole freaking tree just about. I think it's huge.
It's a big round. It was bigger than the laurel was, and it's a white oak, and it's green. All the leaves was on it. It had.
They snapped it at the roots basically and just took off.
Wrung it off. You could see the bottom of it where it had been twisted off. And the funny thing is, there wasn't a white oak anywhere close to that. So the closest one we found was a couple 100 yards. So it had to carry it in from a couple 100 yards out. And if you look, you can see right there where its foot slipped when it was throwing it across the trail.
Oh yeah, it's almost a hole as a footprint, where he's digging in.
It's hard to tell on this picture, but back then we wasn't trying to collect evidence to show people. We was just like, well, this happened, so let's take a picture of it. And the funny thing about this one is I've made a video of it, and I hollered at my buddy and I told him, I said, we're going to have to bring saws in and cut this one up. And I just got through videoing it, and back down where we parked the four-wheeler, here comes something flying through the tops of the trees at the four-wheeler. I mean, tearing limbs out, tearing all of that stuff. And I told him, I said, there's one thing about it. I've tried to be peaceful, but if they tear my four-wheeler
it's on.
It's on.
It's on.
That's what I was thinking, but I couldn't have done nothing.
Well, you hadn't had, besides them throwing warning shots, any violent encounters with them.
No, the one, I have been up there bow hunting, me and my dad. I put him in a spot, and I went on up to where I hunted at, and where I'd heard them talk and stuff. And I'd been up there for probably about an hour, and then I heard something coming around the hill, and that's the only time I've ever heard one coming in on me loud. And I think it's deer coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and that was the year that we had all the wildfires.
Right.
So that's how dry it was. And I think if it had been a normal year, I probably wouldn't have heard it then. But it come in, and I'm getting ready for deer and stuff to come through, and nothing ever shows up. So I'm sitting there like, well, where did they go? And probably about 10, 15 minutes after I heard it come through, a rock lands about 50 yards out from me. And the acorns and stuff had done and dropped. And actually that year it was so dry there wasn't no acorns, but it was late enough for the acorns done to be off the tree. And I thought, well, I wonder if that's what I think it was. And I sit there about 5 minutes. Here comes another rock that lands about 10 yards closer. I sat there, and here comes another rock about 10 yards closer, until they're landing about a foot and a half, 2 foot away from me. And I thought, well, it's time for me to go. It's
run out warning shots.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. They were saying it's time for you to go. And I called my dad and I told him, I said, well, the Bigfoots are up here and they're throwing rocks at me. I said, so I guess it'd be time for me to head back your way. And he said, well, I had something down here. He said there was two of them. Said one was down below where we come around the corner, and the other one was straight up above me. And said the one down at the corner would whistle once, and the one up here above me would whistle twice, the same whistle. And I told him, I said, did they go? He said, how did you know? I said, I've heard them do it a lot. Man. So, and he said, that what that was? And I said, yeah. So I went and we left. And another story that will show you how smart these things are. A guy that I met when I was on the Finding Bigfoot show.
Oh, so you were on the show?
Yeah, I was on the last season.
The episode, the name of the episode is a family that squatches together.
Yeah, that was the name of the episode too.
Oh wow! I'm gonna have to go watch it now.
The one of the guys that come out and done the talk to me first before I ever met any of the other ones, he was checking. I guess he's the one they send out to see if it's a bunch of junk or if you're telling the truth.
Yeah,
and we were walking around and I was showing him stuff, and my dad had killed 2 does in there about 2 days before. And I told him, I said, we gutted them right over here. Let's see if there's anything there. And we went over, and it was just like I was saying before, they'd cleaned up both of those gut piles. The only thing we found was up in they had actually went where he had shot him with his bow. They only run like 10, 15 yards and fell over. But there where the blood had come out, they'd actually walked that trail and took all those leaves up that had blood on them. And I don't know if they're doing that to get the nutrients out of it or what it is. We found one leaf that was turned up and had, you could see in the bottom of it where it had, some of the blood had dried. And when we got over there to where we had gutted them, there was one white hair stuck to the side of a little old stick that was up off the ground. When I gutted them, the guts had rolled under that. And one of the white hairs off of it was still stuck to that. It was only hair, only blood or anything we found. But what I was going to tell you was I was talking to him, and he said that they was on an expedition where there was 5 of them, and they had went through where they wanted to research, and they went through and cleared all the trails out. All the leaves out of it, all the sticks, everything, so that they could get footprints, that kind of stuff. And said about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 of them was still outside, and 3 of them was in the tent, asleep. And he said the one guy told his buddy, said, I'm going to get my thermal and walk this trail and see if I can see anything. And he got up the trail a little ways, and they had brought in 5 sticks, all the same length. They'd broken them to the same length and brought them in and laid 2 of them, or 3 of them down and stood 2 of them up. Just like they were saying, there's 3 laying down and 2 of them still
Whoa.
up. And whoa. That's how intelligent
they were scouting them out pretty much.
Sounds something like a serial killer would do when he's hunting you in the woods. Whoa.
And they do that to leave it. I've got a lot of pictures of stuff that they do to leave as markers, trail markers, and all of that stuff.
Or you can go sometimes and they'll leave a line of broken trees, almost like they're saying, "This is my side, this is your side. You stay over there, I'm gonna stay over here, and we're good." Kind of like just marking their territory, pretty much like a boundary.
And they'll do that, and the reason because they'll be 7.5, 8 foot off the ground.
Yeah, and I'm not jumping up there to make barriers. Yeah.
If I can show you this one picture right here.
We'll have to mark everyone that we've shown him. That way he can put them up.
Well, I got to go and you got to show me a squatch. We got to go out in the woods and find one.
We'll do it. I don't know about finding one.
Well, you can show me where you see them.
Yeah, where they're at now. And that's the thing about it. you're not going to see it unless it wants you to see it.
Right.
And people will, I had never run into any until I found this one group.
Right.
And then once I found those and started learning a little more about them, you learn real quick that you don't do nothing on your terms. It's
Right.
all on theirs, because they don't have to do nothing. They can stay hid. They can run you out. They can do whatever they want to do. I was trying to find that one. It may be on my phone.
Was you going for your tree breaks?
The one that I've got that shows my picture in it,
Yeah.
you can see the difference in. Get over that. That's the thing about being old. They ain't technically.
Well, that just makes you more believable and stuff. They're not think you're using digital stuff to fake it, you know.
No, I ain't that smart.
Yeah. we just some old rednecks from North Carolina. We ain't tech savvy at all.
No. I got one of these smartphones. It ain't made me near a bit smarter. Everybody bragging on it. It ain't done nothing for me.
It's done nothing for me. I want my money back. The smartphone may have made me dumber.
False advertising.
Right there's one that's about 10 feet off the ground.
So the picture, I can see that the tree's still alive because you can see the color in the hardwood and stuff.
And that's the way you know when they do it. If it's a snow break or wind damage, they'll split.
Mm-hmm.
But 9 times out of 10, not always, but 9 times out of 10, these will be snapped off clean and they'll be laid down in a certain direction. Whether that's the direction saying we're going this way, this is the way you go to food, water, whatever.
This is my side, this is your side.
So
whatever.
they're trail markers or trail pointers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
You've got some of the structures too, don't you, where they take the...
yeah, I've got a little bit of everything on this thing.
The structure thing is funny because it's funny because God thought he was finding Bigfoot structures, but really he was following Boy Scouts camping in the woods. So they're making lean tubes and stuff.
This is a video.
Found this right here, where close to where a polar.
That looks like some Blair Witch stuff.
About it, I got to looking how symmetrical it was. And all of
Blair Witch?
up into where I go. Ends up from up in there anyway.
So I'm looking at a video of him looking at a wood structure, and it looks like almost like a compass, arrows and stuff.
Stick here. That ain't freshly broke, but it's been laid right here since I was last time I was in here.
So there's a long stick coming from the building or the structure, and I guess it's pointing the way that they're going, or the way to water or food or something like that.
The thing about this is, if you went in a straight line, you could be in people's backyard in about 10 minutes.
So it's like, hey, this way is humans. Let's not go that way.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because there's also great big cornfields there. So I don't know if they're marking this is the way to food, but because they could get in that tall corn and eat all they want.
Yeah, you get
carry off.
You get 10 foot high corn stalks. And
And
Imagine going through Dill's corn maze and seeing Bigfoot. Yeah, not a good time.
that'd be one that I guarantee you would scare you.
So you're known in the community for, Bigfoot, and you have the photos and evidence and proof. But Bigfoot, foot of big.
That's his French cousin.
Yeah, the Bigfoot. He's the least believed character out of the people who believe things. Like the online poll, people are more inclined to believe there might actually be aliens, and there are Atlantis, Bigfoot, etc., etc. Do you get any, kickback or any?
My wife.
You want? No, just non-believers just showing you a little bit of shade because
My wife.
The biggest argument. Well, why ain't we found bones? Well, I've got a simple answer for that. Number one.